Welcome back to QuickBooks. It's about 4 minutes to 6. So we're just kind of waiting for people to sign on and come to class. If you're coming to class, it's room 19. Right. Really? No. Okay. Welcome, Myra. You're the first one to log in. We're waiting for a few more to log in and see if anybody's going to show up to the classroom today. Since the class can be taken either way, sometimes we get people in the class and sometimes they're just all online. Welcome back. Is it raining out?
A little bit.
I can hear it on the roof. Just little ticks. You're supposed to get like a quarter of an inch, right? Or something. Well, welcome to the Advanced QuickBooks class. I'm the instructor, Dan Guerra. And what we're going to be going over in this class is using more advanced features in the online QuickBooks and some of the more, more obscure and less commonly used features, especially for just basically data entry bookkeepers. So we'll go through some more accounting, some of the principles and practices, and we'll learn how to do some manual manipulation of some accounting figures in QuickBooks. So as you may have heard, with great power comes great responsibility. So some of the stuff we're doing, if you're doing it for real, you really got to know what you're doing, because you can make some changes that could have big impacts, especially when we get into things like the journal. So our class is going to be 3 weeks. So we're starting this week. We are going to be 1 day short because Thanksgiving. So what we'll do is we'll kind of speed things up and compress them. But we'll be doing, so today through Thursday, and then the 15th through the 18th, and then the 22nd through the 24th. So we won't be here on Thanksgiving. Unless you guys want to come and cook a turkey, I guess we can do that in class. So that'll be the 3 weeks. And as we are doing it, each day I will send you an email. And in that email, it'll have a couple of elements. One of the things you can do is if you want to launch your QuickBooks, it has a quick launch to let you launch the QuickBooks right away. So let's go back to my email here. So you should have gotten one today, and it basically is going to tell you what we're going to be doing today. Sometimes we're going to be using some files. So if there's a file you need to download or link to, it'll be here. And then we'll go over it in class as we use it. And then you'll also see the link for the day if you want to do the live Zoom. And then each day, as we do the class, we'll have a recording going on. So it records everything that's happening. It's recording right now. So if you miss a class, this will also have the link to the previous day's class. And as you go through the 3 weeks, you'll end up with a whole set of all the classes. So you can always go back and review anything that you missed or anything you weren't clear on. Or maybe at the end of class, you say, wow, I didn't know I could do that. Let me go back to the beginning and see how that worked back then. So it's just a kind of reference. And you get to keep those even after class. They stay up. They're actually on YouTube. But they're not private. But the settings are, the only way to get to them is you have to know the link. And the link, the URL, what do they call it? It's really long and complicated. So guessing it is virtually impossible. So really the only way to know it is to know the link. So that'll come through the email. Here's where I mentioned we have our launching with QuickBooks. You can always click that button, and that brings up, it takes you directly to the link to log into QuickBooks. Even if you don't log out of QuickBooks in the online version, it will log you out automatically after a certain amount of time. It's a security procedure. By the way, on the desktop version, it does not do that. You can leave it up as long as you want until it crashes. It's usually not a good idea. QuickBooks is a large program, and it can drain your computer of resources. So it's good to shut down and restart like every night. But at the same time, when you come in the morning, then you get to start it up. And some people like to have it just pop up. So you could do that for a couple of days, but you'll see your computer start slowing down, and it's time to reboot. Plus, if you leave it open and somebody walks up to your computer, they can immediately get into some pretty sensitive information, write themselves a check. So the other thing you'll see in the element is our word of the day, which today is punctual, meaning arriving on time and prompt. As in the example of, punctual students earn funny money incentives every day. That's something we do for our larger class. You'll also see you have access to the free online newspaper from Modesto Bee. You actually get Modesto Bee, Stockton Record, Merced Sun Star, and Sacramento Bee. because they're all owned by McClatchy. So they do this for education, and you can see them online and see what's happening in the real world. And if you really get into doing bookkeeping and finance, you will see that it's a good idea to keep up with the news because things are constantly changing. You hear today, all the changes they're talking about making at the federal level. Well, it's not just federal level, it's the state level. And all those changes, a lot of times people think, well, they don't affect me. They might. If you're doing QuickBooks, they might, because what they do is they recategorize certain things for tax purposes, and that can affect your QuickBooks and how you're tracking your materials. They also will have changes in how taxes are collected. Like during the COVID pandemic, they cut back on how much employers had to pay in to keep their employees. So that works for a short time, but then that expired. So then you got to know, well, I got to go back and adjust it again. All right. So this is the Zoom meeting link. And then when you launch your QuickBooks, you should be able to log in. And here's my store and my QuickBooks. So from the last class, we're going to use the same file. If you're new, you can just create your own. I sent you a little note about how to set that up. Or you can set up as you go along. Because this is just an experimental company file, you can do pretty much anything you want because you're the boss. There's nothing you can do on here that could hurt anything, unless you really do put in your own social security number. Then something might happen. We've never had it happen, but it is possible. QuickBooks right now does not have to report anything. So in other words, if you put it in here, it doesn't make it official. It only becomes official when you report it. So for example, when we do payroll, we're going to go through and simulate a payroll, but it won't be official because you're not going to submit it to the state. If you do, they'll send you a letter and say, what is this? So as you're working with the QuickBooks, feel free to experiment and to browse around, especially after we do a few things. If you learn something new and you want to practice it, practice makes perfect. And good practice makes even better perfection. As we go through, we will be working with customers, with vendors, and a lot of the same documentation we used before for the beginning class. If you weren't in the beginning class, you can kind of just fill in as we go along. If you were in the beginning class, it's going to be building on that. So all those materials we did before and all the stuff we had before, you will see again. If you decide you want to be a little bit more serious or practice a more official type of QuickBooks, let's say you're starting your own business and you want to say, okay, what would it look like? Let me know. I can, all I need is a different email address. What we can do is we're allowed to provide as many licenses to our students as we like, even if you're going to use it for real. In fact, they love it if you're going to use it for real. It's 1 year, so you get a free year and use it as much as you like. The goal for QuickBooks is at the end of the year, they hope you like it so much, they say, I'm going to stick with this. I'll go ahead and pay their yearly fee. If you don't, it just stops and it'll give you a warning in your email, access is about to expire, and you can just let it go if it's not important. If you do decide to try a little business on here and you want a separate account, like I said, you just need to give me a separate email. Can't be the same email because they'll say it's already got an account, but a separate one, and I'll set that up. And then at the end of the year, if you decide you don't want to keep QuickBooks, you can download all of the materials into files and then use them on other systems. So like Peachtree, for example, or something else. It is a really good idea if you're going to start a business to do this. I don't know if you know this, a lot of the people who do the gig economy, so like Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, DoorDash, and all those, the way it's currently established is they are businesses. Every person who signs up, the companies don't tell you this, but in fact, you are your own business. So that means you got to start keeping records. And if you don't, what will happen is they'll just tax you at your regular rate. Well, here's the thing. With like the delivery people and the drivers, there are a lot of expenses they can deduct. You can't deduct gas, too bad, because it's going up, but you can do mileage, and those miles add up. And I'll give you an example. Uber will send the drivers a report at the end of the year of how many miles they've driven. The problem is Uber only counts once somebody requests a ride, wherever you're located, how far it takes you to drive from there to pick the person up and then drop them off. Well, maybe you've been driving around town trying to find the rides. Those miles count too. So if you track them yourselves, you can use QuickBooks. We're going to show you how to set the mileage, and QuickBooks will keep track of them. Then at the end of the year, you can take, is it 26 cents a mile, I think? It changed. I know it changed again. And you think, I don't know, that's only 26 cents. Well, it adds up, a few hundred miles. And the way it works is all your expenses you can offset against your income, meaning whatever Uber pays the driver, if they have enough mileage, they can offset it and actually, not have to pay all those taxes. So that could be a really good thing. And not to count, you can count meals. If you buy a meal while you're waiting to pick up a person, that counts too as an expense. They're just ordinary expenses that cost you to do business. And that's essentially what we're doing QuickBooks, but on a larger scale. We're keeping track of all the expenses and then all the income, and then that can make a difference on your taxes. The other thing we're going to get into a little bit when we do our taxes is there are some programs, some tax categories that you can defer the taxes on. Meaning, if you take a loss this year, right, 2021, but hey, 2022 looks pretty good, I think we're going to have a big profit. You could say, I don't want to take the loss now, because if I do, I'll burn it up, right? And right now, I didn't make a whole bunch of money in 2021. But in 2022, I expect to make a lot of money. So you can defer the loss to the next year. Then when you make a whole bunch of money, you can say, but here's all my losses from that last year. It offsets them. And again, you don't pay taxes. So the good news is QuickBooks will help us do a lot of that stuff. And you'll see all throughout QuickBooks, there are lots of little hints about how they can help you do that. So any questions so far? All right, so everybody should be logged into their QuickBooks, and it should look something like this. So mine is Dan's Convenience Store. And from before, it's just a little retail store. And as I scroll down, I have some information here, and you'll see most of the functions that you need to get to are here on the main dashboard. So to start off today, we already have some customers in here, and we've done invoices, but now we're going to start with creating estimates. So an estimate is something a business will do, and it's usually requested by a customer. A customer will say to the business, all right, I want to buy a whole bunch of stuff. I'll send to the list. Can you give me an estimate? You say, sure, I'd be happy to. So you say, here's how much we'll charge you. And if you're going to buy 50 of these items, we'll give you a 10% discount and things like that. So then the customer says, okay, well, here's Dan's Convenience Store. He'll give me 10% off. Here's the other stores. Oh, they're much more expensive. And they can compare. So that's what they're doing. When they ask for estimates, they're doing a comparison. If you deal with governments will ask for requests for proposals. They call them RFP or RFI, request for information. And what they're doing is the same thing, but they just do it in a little different style. But it's essentially an estimate. They're saying, here's what we need to buy, either in services or in goods. And usually it's just wide open. They don't ask particular companies, hey, send us this proposal. They'll publish it. And then people who do business with them regularly watch those websites very much, because it's their bread and butter. But anybody can propose something, and then they'll look it over and decide who they think is the best bidder. The least expensive bidder may not always be the winner. Sometimes if you're like just starting out and you are going to install computer networks, You might be the cheapest, but at the same time, they feel it's more important to have somebody who's been doing it for a while. So experience counts. So they might not necessarily take the cheapest. Unfortunately, you don't know till you try. So you get all that trouble of making an estimate, and then customer can say, oh, no thanks, we want somebody else. Or we changed our mind completely. All right. To get to estimates, you will see on my dashboard here, I've got create estimates. You can also see that by going here to new. And you'll see estimate up here. Either way, it gets you to the estimate screen. So you can create estimates or click on new estimates. And I missed my click. So if you're watching online, by the way, I do turn off the video of me because that tends to slow things down sometimes. So I'll turn it on like during break, but then you can see what's happening here in the classroom. But during regular time, I will turn it off. And then anybody who's attending online, by the way, if you want to show your video, you can. If you want to show audio, you can, or you can turn them off. I think when you start up, you start off muted, but you can always turn those on voluntarily. I cannot turn them on, so I can't be turning on people's cameras when I don't expect it. So just so you know, if you want to say something, you have to turn on your microphone. And then if you want, you can also use the chat box here. Just like that. All right, so now here's our estimates. For those of you who did the invoices, you will see it looks a lot like an invoice. It's almost exactly the same as an invoice. However, one thing that is different is you will see this button here. It shows you whether it's a pending invoice or, pardon me, pending estimate, or there's other options. Once it's accepted, you can mark it accepted, you can mark it closed, or you can mark it rejected. That's not in invoices. So what I'm gonna do is use my pick list for a customer. And I could do Mike Candy, or if you don't have any customers, or if you just want to add a new customer, you'll see at the top, you've got an add new. So I'm gonna click on add new for add new customer. So I put her name, Sarah Jones. Now I can just click save. What it will do is throw that name into my customer list. You'll notice what's missing though is all her details. If you feel like it, you can add the details now. And I'll just add that in it because I'm making it up. And there she goes. So whenever you're dealing estimates or invoices or anything to do with customers, you'll always see that add new. So you can add them in on the fly. And that can happen. You know, if you had a large list of customers, let's say you had 300 customers, it's a pretty good list. You're not gonna have them all memorized. You'll have a few memorized. The good customers are actually, I'll tell you who you remember. You remember the good customers and the really bad customers, because they're the ones who need all the attention, right? So you'll remember those are easy. But you may have a whole bunch of other customers that come periodically that you don't memorize. So when you look on your list here, if you don't see the person, you can always click the add new here instead of closing this window, going out, adding, and coming back. So you can do it on the fly. Now the other thing I could do, now that she's in here, is as I start typing the name, you'll see the closest finds will pop up. So the computer will look for it. Here she is, because I just added her. So you can start typing, and if you don't see anything, then that's your best hint that, okay, new person. So add new. And by the way, adding new customers is a good thing. You want that. All right, so then you've also got an email. I didn't add that, but you could. If you were going to send this via email, there's a couple of ways to do it. One is put the email in here, and then you can tell it to send from QuickBooks. The other thing people like to do they don't want to link their QuickBooks to their email, is you can, once you create this, you can print it as a PDF. In other words, it's going to create the Adobe PDF form. It's going to be exactly like this. And then you can go into your email and attach it. So that works too. So the estimate date is going to be today's date. You'll see there's an expiration date. We're not going to set an expiration date. But sometimes businesses will do that. They will say, all right, I'm going to give you the estimate. Here's how much it costs for my stuff, or that we would charge you if you go with us. But if you take too long, I'm not going to guarantee these prices forever, especially nowadays, because I don't know about you, but you go to the store, stuff you bought yesterday for one price is now another. Gas, it just went up another, was it 20 cents last time I was at the gas station? So, and those prices do change, and what's happening is the vendors and the companies are seeing price changes too. I don't think, I got it from Costco, I don't think Costco is just being mean to me and saying, you know what, we're going to take more of your money. I think they have to pay more, so they're passing on the costs, right? So that can happen. And if you have an open-ended estimate, an unscrupulous customer may say, like 6 months from now, hey, you promised me those flashlights, for only 50 cents a piece. Well, now I can't afford to do that because they've gone up on my end. So I'd say, no, look at the expiration date. That expired 2 months. So it's for a limited time only. You'll see on the right side here, we've got the estimate number and location of sale. So location of sale is going to be my address. And then you'll see the estimate numbers. Well, it started at 2 because I was playing around with 1. But it starts the numbering system over again from the invoice. So it's not using the invoice numbering system. So again, that's a reminder how invoices are separate from estimates. Here you'll find tags. Tags is something they do in the online version, and we've seen them before, and they work the same. If you want this estimate to be searchable under certain terms that might not show up normally, you can put them in here, and then later on when you're trying to find it, you can use that tag as a search term, and this will pop up. So if, let's say this is for the county, but you have 7 or 8 different agencies in the county you might work with. So in each one of these, you could put county RFP, request for proposal, right? Then, say at the end of the month, the boss comes and says, we seem to be making a lot of estimates for the county. Is it just me? Can you tell me how many we've done? Rather than trying to remember, okay, which agencies are the county again? You can just search for that tag because you keyed it in here, and it will pop up and say, look, we've done 7, or whatever the number is. So that's just a way if you want to tag your estimates. Down below, you got products and services. So this is just like an invoice. You'll see I have a list of my products that I put in before. So I mentioned flashlights. Let's do some flashlights. So I'm going to say 100. Now you'll notice as I type in my number that they want 100 flashlights. My quantity on hand says 25. So how can I do that? Well, remember, this is not an invoice. This is an estimate. So it's actually not going to affect my current quantity on hand. In fact, the 25, you see it says I have 25 on hand. The 25 I have on hand may not go to this customer, whether I get the that's the bid or not. Because what'll happen is those are my regular stock, but I'm going to do a special order. And this 100, I might just order in one big batch from my supplier. Okay, so in my case, to try to sweeten the deal, I'm going to change my price. So under rate, that's the price that I'm charging, or say I'm going to charge for these. I'll give them, let's see, 50 cents off each. So I'm going to change my rate here to $4.50. On the right-hand side, amount hasn't been changed yet because I haven't hit the tab key. Once I hit tab, then it adjusts. All right. Then again, are they taxable? And again, depending on who you're selling to, they may or may not be. Now, this is an individual, so she's probably taxable. But if you're selling to another store, and nowadays, this happens all the time, where one store will run out and they'll say, hey, somebody, I'll pay whatever you need. I got to get these to my customer. So you might be selling to another store, and then they would not be taxable, because the rule is only the final end user pays sales tax. So like when it goes from a manufacturer to distributors pay for them, but they don't pay sales tax. When it goes from a distributor to a retail store, the retail store may pay for them, but they don't pay the sales tax. When the retail store sends or sells them to the end customer, that end customer pays the sales tax. So if they didn't do that, everybody had to pay sales tax, the price of things would just be astronomical, because you're always adding another 6% on every time it moves a transaction. So I'll leave that turned on. And next to that, we've got the little box. That's a delete box. It's supposed to be a trash can. I think it looks like a Christmas present, but maybe I'm just seeing too much Christmas already. And then it gives me the subtotal. And as I move along and tab off of that, I do have the option to add more lines. So if we're doing more products, we could, and sometimes when they ask for a bid, they may have asked for flashlights, for camping tents, and shovels. Well, I don't have camping tents and shovels, but I do have flashlights. So I'm only going to bid on that portion of it. And you can do that depending on, the customer. If the customer allows it. If they don't, they should say, it must be a complete bid or nothing, because they don't want to break them up. On the other hand, I might have such a good deal on flashlights. They'll buy the flashlights from me and everything else from somebody else. So you can actually add lines. You can go up, I think there's 100 lines possible. You can clear all lines. I don't want to do that because I will lose everything. But if you wanted to clear them, you could. And then there's add subtotal. And we'll be getting into these in the invoice or an estimate. As you're going down, you could subtotal certain groups of things together. And that's basically what it does. It says, if you just bought this group, here's the total. Now you'll see a box that says message to display on estimate. So this, if I type something here, this will show up on the documentation I send to the customer. So this could be a note to them, like the prices subject to change based on quantity or something like that. Or you're trying to give them a hint, if you order more than you wanted, I could do a better deal. You could put that right here. Then the customer will see it when they read your bid. Down below here in the statement, later on, if you do get the bid and you process it, then what'll happen is the customer will receive statements. Maybe you're doing progress invoicing. Like every month, you're going to send them half of the order, for 2 months. So then when you send the statement as to the progress of how much they paid and how much they owe, you can have a statement or a note on here. And then again, attachments. So if you have an attachment, like a credential or something you want to include on this, and you're going to use QuickBooks to email it, you can send it here. And sometimes, they'll say, must be a certified American Flashlight Association member or something like that. So I don't know if there is such a thing, but if there were, and I could attach it right here. If I use QuickBooks to send this estimate, it'll go along with it. I don't have to send it separately. And then you'll see on my right side here, it did calculate my sales tax for me based on the location. And here would be the estimate total. So all that makes sense. It's exactly like an invoice, except as we're going to see, it doesn't affect our books the same way an invoice does. All right, so down here, I have cancel and clear. Cancel deletes everything I just entered without saving it and closes the window. Clear just empties it out, lets me start over again if I really messed up. You can do print or preview if you want to see what it's going to look like, and it gives you a little preview here. There it is. So here's how it's going to look. I can either download it, and if I do, it'll download as a PDF document, which is a pretty standard document. Or I can just close it. If I wanted to do this over a period of time, over and over again, I can make this recurring. Invoices can be recurring. Estimates, usually not. It's kind of rare for an estimate to be recurring. However, it's not impossible, especially as, let's say, companies are buying t-shirts from you, and they want an estimate every 3 months, because what they want to do is keep comparing prices, and they're always looking for a better deal. And they say, and if you don't give us an estimate, we won't do business with you. You say, okay, that's fine. That's good. That'll limit the competition, because people who don't want to do it or don't know how won't bother, and there's fewer people to compare us to. So you can have a recurring estimate like every 3 months. Here's what 100 t-shirts would cost you. You can also customize your estimate. We'll get into those later. You can customize all your documents, and then there's some more features. We'll get into those too. But right now, I'm going to save and close. Now, if I just save, it'll record it, but it'll leave everything up. Save and new will record it, close my information, and create a new estimate for the next one. Save and send, we'll save it and then set up the email to be sent. So I'm just going to save and close. And you should get a little notice real quick that says that your estimate's been saved, and you're all set. So now you send it off, and then you wait. So estimates usually don't get answered right away. I guess they could, but it's kind of rare. They usually are, like I said, there'll be a certain deadline they have to be sent in by, and then other vendors will have a chance to put theirs in, and then they'll do the comparison. I don't know if you saw in the news, but NASA just had a big one versus, it was Blue Origin versus SpaceX. So Elon Musk versus Jeff Bezos, and Elon Musk won, and Jeff Bezos didn't like that, so he's suing. And that, you know, when it's a government like that, they have to follow certain rules. So then you get your lawyer, okay, what rules did they not follow right? But it just got thrown out. So basically he lost, but that happens. You know, and you'll see, like we did one for the county of Stanislaus, and they have somebody sitting there. It says it has to be delivered 5 o'clock by Stanislaus County clock time. Meaning you can't say, well, you might say 5 o'clock. My cell phone right here says 4:59. They say we go by our clock, so people can't do that. It has to be turned over physically to the person receiving it by that time. And then they're not responsible for late deliveries and things and traffic and all that. Because, you know, they do. They have people rushing in, and maybe they did get stuck in traffic, and now it's 5:01, and they say, nope, that's it. Can't accept it. No exceptions. So usually, if you're doing something like that, if you're going to do something that big, you get it in a day ahead of time. Don't wait to the last minute. They can be very formal about those, and it's not just they're being jerks about it. It's that they know if they say, okay, you know, it's just a minute. Okay, I'll count it. Then if you win, somebody else is going to say, no, that was not legitimate because you got it 1 minute late. So we're going to sue you, and we're going to put the whole thing on hold till this lawsuit gets settled, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's why they really have to follow the rules. It's not necessarily just their own internal rules, but what happens by other people who don't win. So you got to be careful of that. So ours is in. Let's see what it did for us. So right now, I'm going to go to my customers and take a look at my customers. So I'm going to go to Sales, Customers. And where is Sarah? There she is, Sarah Jones. You will notice Sarah Jones, even though I have a couple $100 in an estimate, she doesn't have an opening balance. Why? She hasn't accepted it yet. It's still there. So it doesn't change the balance on the customer until they accept it, and then it becomes an invoice. So this will stay zero. So the only way to see it now with her, if I click on Sarah Jones, I can see it in my transaction list here under Sarah Jones, and there's my estimate. And you can see the status is pending, right? So we wait, hope for the best. But it doesn't affect that. Now, I'm going to go over here to my expenses and vendors. And none of my vendors have changed either because I haven't ordered them to fill the bill yet. Also back here to my products and services under sales. There's my flashlights, and I still have 25 because again, now those were on order, or on my shelf, and they aren't going to be part of the order, so I still get to keep those. So an estimate doesn't change anything, even tax-wise, for your business. It's not till they actually accept it that it starts changing things. So you just keep that in mind. So now I'm going to go back to my customer list. Let's say we got it. Hooray. So I'm going to click on Sarah Jones. Here's my estimate. So there she is again. So I want to change it from pending, the status, to accepted. Ta-da. So it's going to ask me to put a little bit more information, basically who accepted it and what date. Well, I'll say it was by Sarah Jones herself, and the date was today's date. And again, using QuickBooks, you can use the little date feature here, or you can key it in manually. I like to type it, I like to click it, because it saves a few typing strokes. And then we save and close. Now you'll see it is marked as accepted. Hooray. But how much does she owe us? Still zero. Even though it's been accepted, nothing's happened. It's up to us to take the next step. So in my case, I clearly don't have enough. It's time to go to my vendor. So I am going to go and order them right now. I'm going to go to expenses and vendors. And we're going to create a purchase order. And I'm going to use XYZ wholesaler. Now, again, depending on your company's style and what their requirements are, they could just do it as bill. You could create a bill here. But in my case, I'm using purchase orders first, then the bills. So this just notifies XYZ, hey, I want to place an order for 100 flashlights. So here they are, down below. I want to go to my item details and flashlights. So I'm going to order 100. Oops. There we go. Oops, 1,100. 110. There we go. I'm buying them at $3.80 a piece. So not making a lot. It's going to cost me $380 to get that 485. I could tag this against Sarah Jones right here as customer, but because I have an estimate, I really don't need to do this. The estimate's going to take care of that. Okay, so I place my purchase order, save and close. Now, when I go down to XYZ, I'm ready to create the bill. So they gave me the order, they sent me the bill, create the bill and pay it. So first, we're going to generate the bill. So it comes up XYZ, there we go. And I've got my purchase order over here to the right. There it is. So I want to add this to my bill and connect them together. So I'm going to click add. And there it is. It carries it right over. So I don't have to rekey it or anything. It's 100 at $3.80. And save and close. Okay, so now here you'll see I've got an outstanding bill, $380. I'm going to go back on my products and services list. And I'm going to see here, flashlights. I now have 125 on hand. So it worked. So I received them. They're in my inventory. I'm going to pay for them right now. And then I'm going to turn around and make my profit. So I'm going to go back to vendors. So here they are, and sure enough, there's the amount of money I owe them, $380. I'm gonna make a payment. Okay. So again, it carries over the same information from my bill. And I'm gonna save and close it. So just FYI, I can see that that check came out of my checking account. And here's the transaction to pay for those flashlights. So that one, just like a normal procedure. But now I want to connect all that to that estimate. So there's a couple ways to do it. The easiest way is just go back to customers. I'm going to find Sarah, and you'll see there's create invoice. Right? So now we've done this before in the other class. We just create an invoice. Oh, look what's on the right-hand side. Here we go. So here is that estimate. So now instead of having to type in, 100 flashlights and all that, I can just click add. And then if you're sneaky, here's where you put in the extra fee, the transportation fee or gas tax fee that they didn't mention, but they forgot to mention in the bid proposal that must include all fees. So now here you slip one in. And then what's happened is after they've accepted it, do they want to cancel it and go back? So that's not good though. Don't do that. All right, so I'm going to save and close. And now here's Sarah. So she owes me $485.44 for the flashlights. Go ahead and receive the payment. Everything else works just like normal. So I receive the payment. I can go to my products and services. I can see my inventory and flashlights. It's back down 25. They came, they went. But in exchange for all that effort, I can look at my checking account and I can see I just made some profit, right? So the 485.44 minus 380 is my profit. Now, here's the other thing about estimates, real quick. You don't have to generate invoices off of estimates. It doesn't hurt anything, and some don't. You could just create an invoice, say like this, on my customers, and go to Sarah, create invoice, and then even though on the right-hand side it says here's the estimate, I don't have to link it because estimates don't carry over a balance. Oops, I just lost my QuickBooks here. Since they don't carry over a balance, they won't affect any financial limits. They're just there. So even if they're accepted and you don't pay off of them, the invoice itself that you're going to create will. So it will show up in the accounting, just not through the estimate. All right, so it's 6:57. We'll take a 10-minute break and we'll be back at 7:07. So give you a chance to get up and stretch your legs a bit. And it'll give me a chance to reopen my QuickBooks that I accidentally closed. Okay, we are back. So as I mentioned, some people will use the estimate system and not necessarily receive invoices against them. I don't know of a good reason, except just, well, let's see. If the type of customers you're dealing with don't formally do estimates. In other words, so I sold 100 flashlights. Okay, so they come back and they say, well, we only want 95. All right, fine. I'll just invoice you for the 95. They'll do that rather than going back and adjusting the estimate and then invoicing them. It just kind of depends on the business preference. I like to have them connected just because it gives you the history. And, let's say next year you look back and say, in November, we sold all those flashlights. What was that all about? Tell me, remind me about that. So you want to go back and look at it. You can look them up separately, but you have to find the sale, then the customer to remember who it was, and then show all the customer history. So if they're linked though, once you find the sale and the payment and all, it's all linked together. So I think it's preferable to do that. But as I always say, if the boss is paying your salary and they don't want to do it, then don't do it. But let me know if there's a good reason to not do that. I'd be curious. Other than just, well, it's like about 3 clicks faster. So let's take a look now at the estimate. So I mentioned you can always go back to your customers. And her name was Sarah in my case. So I'm going to click on Sarah. And Sarah has the advantage of being a customer I just added just now. So the only transactions I'm going to see are the ones I did today. But, in the real world, you can see a whole bunch of other transactions if they're a really good customer and been very busy. You'll see that here is my estimate. And it's still there, but it's also marked closed. That's because it's done. So I'm going to click on it. And then one of the things I liked in the old QuickBooks, I don't know why they changed it, but it used to have a big stamp on here, like right here, it'd say closed. And it would look like it was ink. Like, your chunkers with those ink stamps. It's kind of cute graphic, I thought, but also just by calling it up, you can't miss it. It was, red color, closed, or it was open, being green. Excuse me. Here, to see it, you have to go over here and see a little itty bitty closed. Not as dramatic. So it automatically closed it once we received it. Now, if something happened where you thought it was closed and you need to reopen it, you can go back and change it to anything. You can actually even change to rejected. It wouldn't make any sense if you already received the payment though. But QuickBooks will let you do that. Okay. So on the right-hand side, you'll see one linked invoice. Right over here on the right-hand side. So what that's telling you is, from this estimate, there's one invoice attached to it. Now, why is there one? You could have 2, 3, 100. Depends how the customer pays you. If it was, let's say they wanted 12,000 flashlights and they wanted 1,000 every month for 12 months, okay? They will do, they call it progress payments, meaning when you ship them 1,000, they'll pay for the 1,000. You ship another 1,000, they'll pay for that one, right? On this right-hand side here, when you're all done, you'll probably see 12 linked invoices, one for every month, because they wanted, this in increments. And that's okay. And this estimate will stay open until that last invoice is received, or until you manually come back and close it, which you can always do. This is kind of like purchase orders. Remember, purchase orders you can close manually, you can adjust, and you don't delete, but you can close without receiving anything against them. The reason that's there is because you could have multiple invoices, you could just have one invoice. As long as they're linked here, they'll show up here, how many are linked. So you get an idea of your history, how many invoices were generated off of this one estimate. So you don't need 12 estimates, you just need one estimate and 12 invoices. Again, if the company doesn't use the invoices, they might say, just go ahead and delete the estimates. You can. You kind of lose a little history there, but it certainly doesn't hurt your accounting as long as the invoices are correct, because the invoice is where the rubber hits the road. That's where the money comes in. So as long as those are there, you're good. Estimates are kind of extra and bonus. But as you can see, in the process, it can save you some time, because now, instead of having to generate the invoice from scratch, let's say you had 15 different items, and they accepted your bid. So when you create the invoice, you have to go in and select those 15 different items and make sure you get them right. You don't want to get the wrong ones. So that's kind of a pest to do. If it's an estimate that you've already done that once, why do the work over again? So does that make sense on how estimates work? And you could have 30 estimates and not one of them has been acted on, and QuickBooks won't care. It won't throw anything else out of whack. Now, you have 30 invoices that haven't been paid. Okay, that's going to throw things out of whack. You got a lot of late payments and possibly penalties and other things. So not to undermine estimates, but just that's how QuickBooks accepts them and how they work. So I close this one. Yes, because I didn't make any changes. I don't care about saving them. By the way, you'll notice it did say, let me do that again. Did you notice how it said, do you want to save your changes? You say, I didn't make any changes. Well, I kind of did, because if I go over here and I say, oh, sure, if I wanted to, I could change this here. I just clicked on it. That's going to count as a change, even though it doesn't look like a change. Anything that you click on, QuickBooks, out of an abundance of caution, will ask you, do you want to save the changes? So, if I had misspelled her name and I fix it here or something like that, that's a change, right? But then I go back and say, no, it was right. QuickBooks is still going to count that as a change, even if I changed it back. So if you're just looking at something and you get that message, you know you're safe to say, no, I was just looking. I don't want to save it. So see how I get this message? So anytime you're just looking, don't worry about it. But this is the part that I was freaked out, is if I was on something and I was kind of like, say this was an invoice, and I was working on the invoice and going through, and it was complicated. I went and got a cup of coffee and I came back, and now I close it and it says, do you want to continue out saving? I'm thinking, uh-oh, what did I change? Was there something I needed to save? You kind of forget. So it's a good reminder, but just know that even changing something and changing it back to the original still counts as a save or as a change in QuickBooks, and it will ask if you want to save. So I'm going to say no. I don't want to save it. So I'll leave without saving. Any questions on estimates? So the other way estimates can be used is not just on customers, but on projects. And we're going to get into that this week. So for Sarah Jones here, let's say I'm in construction and Sarah wants me to build her a new addition to a new bedroom to the house. Okay, great. So I'm going to do it my estimate. So I can put that under her because she's going to be the one paying for it, right? But then she comes along and says, oh, by the way, you're doing such a great job. I want to do another project. I won the lottery. So I want to build a pool. Can you build me a pool? Sure, we do that all the time. Okay, give me an estimate. We'll do all that. So what you could do is you can set up projects underneath customers. And then you can do estimates for each project separately. And you can invoice each project separately. Even though in my case, Sarah is going to pay the bill no matter which project it is. They are categorized under QuickBooks as basically like sub-projects under the main customer. So you can do that, especially if you have a customer that does a lot of business with you, a lot of different projects. If you are a subcontractor to a contractor, then you can do that as well. And so it might be that they're doing the building, the construction, you're doing the supplies. and they'll tell you the different projects they want to set up. And they want to be invoiced separately for those projects to keep everything organized because they don't want the wrong customer to get the wrong bill. So we'll be getting into those. Those get a little complicated, but again, with QuickBooks, it helps you keep things straight. So any questions so far on our customers and how we did our estimates? Okay, so let's practice. So let's practice what we just did. Let's make 5 estimates. Now you choose the customer, you choose the products, much as you like. So if you can find a business where you get to tell the customers what they're buying today and how much to be paying for it, that's a great business. So then order the items to complete the estimates. Now we're going to skip the accepted part. If you wanted to, just to practice it, you could go ahead and accept each 5, but QuickBooks won't mark it accepted until you do it. But once the invoice is paid, it just closes it. And so the acceptance won't show because it didn't happen, but it's assumed. So we'll just do that for the 5. Pay for the items out of your checking account. Then create invoices for those customers using the estimates. And then receive the payments for the estimates to the checking account. Okay, that's a challenge for the day. So we'll see. I'll do it too. So if you want, you can do one estimate, then go and order the items, then pay for the items, and then create the invoice, and then receive the payments, and then go and start the next one. You want to try that? Or you can do all 5 at once. It's up to you. Since we did it one at a time, this time I'm going to do it all 5 at a time. So as I said before, there's a couple ways you can approach this. I'm just going to start with my first 5 customers. So over here in action, instead of create invoice, I'm going to select create estimate. That way, it carries my handy over here. See, it's an estimate. It tells me it's an estimate up here. And I'm just going to head and figure out a product. So I'm going to do my first 5 products. And you can choose how many you want. This time I'm going to do fewer than I have on hand. I mean, fewer than I did last time. So I will actually have enough on hand, but I'm still going to order them as a special order. And if you want to give them a discount, you can. So this time, because I said I'm going to do all 5 at once, one after the other, I can do save and new instead of save and close. And this time, pick on customer number 2. Product number 2. Save and new. Number 3. So I've done my 5 estimates for 5 customers. Now I'm going to order the items. If you forget who you did or how much they are, you will see here in the light blue area under our customers, under sales, it tells you how much you have pending in estimates. And by the way, if you don't receive invoices off those estimates, this number will just keep growing forever. So you can always just click on that, and that'll show you the 5 estimates. Just click on the estimate. So here's Mike. I clicked on his estimate. I did 20 flashlights. Okay, so now I can close this. Better go over and order 20 flashlights. So you can always go back at the history and look at the estimate, see what you need to order. I'm going to create the purchase order. The item details. There's 20. And in my memo, let's say order to fulfill estimate. So there's 1, and I'm going to do 5. I missed. So now I've got my 5 purchase orders. I'm going to receive the bills and pay the bills. So now I've ordered and received all the items I need. So now I'm going to go back and pay bills. And I can tell which ones need to be paid because you will see open bills right here, 5. And I can tell that's done because now I have $0 in open bills and 0 purchase orders. And I believe not much money. I think I just spent it all. I'll take a look at my checking account. Oh yeah. So my checking account's a little low, only $433 left. But that's okay, because now I have enough to fulfill all those 5 estimates. So I'm going to go to my customers, and I'm going to click on estimates. So here we go, 5 open estimates. I'm going to start the invoice. For today I'm going to receive all the items for each estimate on one invoice. I'm not going to split them. So now I have 0 estimates, but I have 5 open balances. So those invoices are open. So now I need to receive payments for all 5. Like I said, you could have done these one at a time. It's your own personal preference here. Usually, well, I guess, it depends how you organize your work. If you're the kind of person who likes to do them all at once, you could just pile them up and do them like at the end of the day and get them all done at once, or do them as you get them. Just kind of depends on what your needs are. So now I just need to go and receive my payments. This is the best part. So how can I tell if I've done them all? If you look on your sales, you should see estimates are 0. There's no outstanding estimates. You have no outstanding open invoices. And when I go to my check register now, I can see my 5 checks. And now I got some money to spend. When you look at your vendors should also have 0 outstanding purchase orders, $0 in open bills. So right, $0 in open purchase orders and $0 in open bills. Now in the real ebb and flow, those may not be 0. They're not always a check on that. And that's a good thing, because you want activity. 0 and everything means nothing's happening right now. And as I mentioned, for the class, we're doing these things just boom, right after the other. Usually that doesn't happen. but it kind of gives you an idea of the flow to do it this way. So when you're done, this should give you some good balance in your checking account. And that's good because this week we're going to pay our sales taxes. If you ever want to see your estimates, you can always go here to all sales. That's under sales, which is under those customers. And if you click on all sales, it won't be right at the top because it's going to count everything, including the invoices we created and the payments. But if I scroll down, there they are. And they're all closed. So that, in a nutshell, is how you do estimates. Like I said, not all companies will do it, depending on your type of business. If you're strict retail, like a convenience store, it's probably pretty rare to do an estimate in the bid. But nowadays, when you're really trying to scrape up new business, that's one way to do it. Is there is a government website that lists everything, and the federal government buys everything, even in California. It's not just back east, and the state does too. So if you track those and you start applying for these, there's a lot out there. So it's another way to find some extra business if you're really struggling, or if you just want to try it, increase your profits, or get into that kind of thing. Government contracting can be quite lucrative. They don't always spend money as wisely or as stingily as maybe somebody who's spending their own money. So it's kind of way to increase your income and your income streams. And some people who do it do very well with it. So it just kind of depends on the type of business you're in, the type of business you want to get into. And you might find that once you get into something like this, that it takes over your business. That you say, well, I'm making so much on this side, and why spend time on the other stuff? On the other hand, sometimes you spend time on the other stuff so that it creates that history and that experience that allows you to gain more experience that you can use to get these bids. But like I said, it's not just federal government and state government or even local governments. It can be just individuals or other companies. When you're selling from one company to the next, they call it B2B, business to business, instead of B2C, for business to customer. So that's pretty lucrative too. I mean, businesses have to buy their stuff somewhere. And even businesses that are in retail like you are might not be selling stuff that you're selling, and they need it for their own purposes to keep their business going. Well, if there's no question on estimates, we're done for the day. So like I said, this recording, after we're done, I'll go ahead and upload it to YouTube. And tomorrow I'll send you the link. If you missed anything, you can watch it. And if you have any questions, always feel free to email or call. I put my phone number in the email. So if you want to give me a call, walk through things, I can help you through it. And then tomorrow, we're going to do a little more advanced things, including working with some advanced things with our customers.
So we'll have class on Veterans Day?
Uh-oh. No, you're right.
Because like everything else.
I'm sorry, you're right. Thanks for reminding me, Olivia. Yeah, no class on Veterans Day because the school will be closed. Yeah. Actually, I guess we could. We could do the online class, but we'll follow tradition. So we'll have to double up that week. You're right. I forgot. November, now starts all the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Hard to believe in a month it'll be December and then 2022.
See you tomorrow then.
All right. Have a good night. So I'll stick around here if anybody has any questions or gets stuck, or if one of your balances aren't zero, I can help you with that. Yes. Yes, you're right. Estimates won't change the inventory numbers, not until you receive them. So as soon as you receive your bills, that's when the inventory numbers will change.